something like this happen. Well, that was challenged by the Regional Commerce and Growth Association, or actually the people who run and own the dome. Challenged in court. Jeff, you're an attorney?
Yes.
And Gary, some of you will understand, but what St. Louis did when they defended that was basically said, no, they can't do that. We really want to vote, but if it doesn't go that way, it's okay with us. And so they basically threw the case, and the judge said, no, that's not worthwhile. So the city of St. Louis will not have a vote. The county was cut out of this deal, the new stadium, so they won't be contributing $6 million to it, because giving credit, Steve Stenger, the new county executive there, said, well, we will participate in this, but only if we have a vote. And the reason they don't want to vote is, first off, it will fail. Secondly, it creates a lot of unknowns for the NFL, and they're trying to make this as clean and smooth as possible, so the NFL doesn't think that there's any problems. So we do know that the people of Missouri, the people of the region, don't want to pay for a vote.
So who wants the stadium?
Governor Nixon and the people who own the stadium now, the city of St. Louis wants it. One of his guys, David
Not the
Peacock.
people are saying.
No, it would fail. If it went to a vote, it would fail. Yes.
What's wrong with Brad Stadium?
It's not in the top, their lease requires to be in the top 25% of NFL stadiums, and it's old and decrepit, and that's not that bad. No, I know how old I am, and I'm over admit it is, and I don't think I'm that. So, but that's something that Governor Nixon. Here's the real deal. Governor Nixon, particularly in his last term, a lot of the finish that he had, a lot of people, including Republicans across the state, thought Jay Nixon was okay for Democrats, right? And they voted him back in. But since then, he's gotten really tarnished. All of our concealed carry, concealed weapons records were turned into the federal government, despite our law that prohibits sharing of that. The Symantec deal, which was out in central Missouri, another tax credit deal with a Chinese sweetener company, was never a real deal. But we committed state funds in Moberly, where it was located. They issued bonds. I mean, they got into some serious financial problems. I think they judged out of it, but there's a lot of problems. So he was part of that. He even said, I don't run the Department of Economic Development. That's probably true. There's nobody who runs it, but he's responsible for it because he appoints the director and the director appoints him. And then Ferguson. Ferguson was the icing on the cake. And he lost any sort of legacy that he thought he might have when Ferguson happened. I mean, he embarrassed himself, he embarrassed the whole state, his mishandling of Ferguson. And so this stadium, in his mind, I'm convinced it's in his mind, will be a recovering of that legacy. He will leave this behind as his grand glory, and that will make up for everything he's done. He's totally out of touch. Totally clueless. All right. The premier issue tomorrow in the veto session that's constitutionally required to begin tomorrow afternoon will be right to work, employee freedom. Gary and I were talking. The words "right to work" have been so demonized that even people who are for it are against it when they hear it. But if they really, if they go back to why they like it in the first place, knowing it as employee freedom, employee choice, to join a union or not join a union, they're back up. They like it. But right to work passed for the first time in state history during this last session, and so tomorrow they're going to be trying to override. But Missouri's economic position is not good. Now, you could be 47 out of 57 if you're in the White House.
Yeah.
But we're 47 out of 50 in economic performance, and our outlook is no better. We do know that what I'm about to tell you are not statistics that I made up. They're not statistics that said, okay, these sound good, it's good. These came from the Bureau of Labor statistics, that came from Department of Labor, Bureau of Economic Analysis. The right-to-work states in the last 10, 12 years have created twice the number of jobs that forced union states have seen. seeing, if you look on, if you go online to howmoneywalks.com, they've got a little database map over on the right, just click on it. You can see any and all states, including Missouri, where people are migrating to from Missouri. Now, when people migrate somewhere else, what happens to the money that they do make? Their wealth. I mean, people think of wealth as being like Gary Rush. But we all have our own wealth. It may be a lot, it may be a little. And when we leave or depart a state, we take that wealth with us. And when you get that compounded, like we're seeing in Missouri and other states, that happens. And that's what's happening right to work. People are being attracted to those right to work states because, you know what? Companies are moving there. Companies are relocating there. Job opportunities are being created. They're being created at a very, very fast rate. We even see in right to work states where union jobs also increase. Why is that? Well, when you're creating twice the number of jobs, you're creating twice the number of opportunities. There's a false perception and a false mantra that says right to work is anti-union. It's not. Nothing in the right to work, any right to work bill in any of the 25 states that have it, none of the right to work bills that we passed here in the state of Missouri prohibit unions. The only thing that it prohibits in any of these states, including the bill in Missouri, is the fact that if you work at a place that otherwise would require you to join the union because there's been a negotiated contract, you don't have to join. So if an employer says you are qualified to work for me, you have all the skills, you have all the training, I can hire you, and you don't have to join the union. Today, that can't happen. Today, you don't have to actually join the union, but you do have to pay your fair share, which is basically union dues and so forth. We also know that right to work states, most who are primarily started out in the South, there's a lot in the western side of the state, none in the northeastern part of the state, have seen higher wage increases. So in the last, that same period, 10 to 12, 13 years, their wages have been increasing at a faster rate. Are they as high as the Northeast, and some of the upper Midwest? No. But when you consider cost of living, which is lower, they are equivalent to the forced union states. There's a big deal because Indiana, Wisconsin, and Michigan, three heavily union states, traditionally union states, forced union states, all have voted to go right to work within the last, 2013 was last one in Indiana, Wisconsin did the last one. The unions are doing exactly what they're doing to our legislators today. We will take you out. You are gone, you are history, you're dead to me. And what we saw in Indiana, Wisconsin, and Michigan was that none of the legislators who voted for right to work lost. Because it's simply true. We also know from I guess I would say accidentally leaked or purloined or whatever, union household survey in the state of Missouri, 40% of the union families aren't against right to work. So it's not that big an issue that they're going to beat you up. We do know that we are lagging behind. We had a study done. We didn't do it. I hired actually not even a state person, that's an economist from Ohio, very, very killing. Actually, I used some of his people when I was budget chair to do a study specifically on Missouri's economic deal. We are last in all the surrounding states, and we also lag the national average, particularly in the part that counts, and that's per capita, real per capita income. So you can look at all these numbers, but what really counts is what's in your pocket, what's in your wallet. Right? And so what we do know that through the analysis of what's happened in other states, and the economic trends, that had Missouri passed right to work 30 years ago, every man, woman, and child would have almost $1,900 more in their pocket than they do today. That's over $5,600 for a family of three today that we would have had we done this 30 years ago. So we are lagging behind. There is nothing that will pull us out from being behind without right to work. So we're not going to improve. And tomorrow, the legislators will be given the opportunity to fix this and to put us on the path coming out of the basement. It takes 109 votes. The bill passed with 92 votes, 17 short. That's a pretty significant number in the House. They were what they need for override. In the Senate, it passed with 20 20 votes, 21 votes, they were three short, there's been 20 in the Senate. If the House passes it, the Senate will pass it. Peter Kinder may be the tie-breaking vote as Lieutenant Governor and President Senate. But the Senate will pass it. Getting it, the House to pass it is where it's going to be. And some of the Republicans who are dug in on this, for whatever reason, there is no economic reason, there are really no factual reason to it. It's going to be all personal reasons. Some of them have turned, some of those who have voted no have indicated they will now vote yes on the override. And so it's going to be very, very close tomorrow. But I'm hoping that at the close, and about adjournment of the legislature tomorrow, that Missouri is a right to work state. It happened. So, we already told you about this. Now, legislative scorecard. Every year we do a scorecard. We evaluate legislators from all across the state. We do not look at any of the bills as to how anybody voted when we choose them. I don't know how people voted. Obviously, if I know the sponsor of the bill, I'm pretty sure they voted for the bill. But aside from that, I really don't know how people voted. So what we did this year, and our board helped set this, and as I mentioned earlier, we're going to be doing this next month for next session. But here's the list of bills that we evaluated, and I've forgotten my color code. But blue, I can see now, blue are Senate votes only. Yellow is both Senate and the House, and the brown is House bills only. So, in other words, they don't all vote on the same stuff because it never comes up in the other body after passes this one, or it's an amendment that was made in the other body. So these are the bills that we passed, or that we evaluated. Again, they're fiscal issues, primarily limited government issues, and that's what we evaluate. So in the House, here's our scorecard breakout. So not too many A's. 17% is not too bad. Actually, of those 28, 11 House members got 100%, which was pretty good. There's nobody in Senate got 100%. But there could have been a couple more, but we don't give them credit for missing a vote. We don't count against them, but we don't give them credit for missing a vote. And so here's the spread of how it went, and it's the usual, A's 90 to 100 and so on. So in your area, and this is kind of the edges of your area, like Shelly Keenan knows on the outer edges. Here's how your area voted. Donna, Kathy, Holly. Don runs pretty close to your area. Tina's down south, I know, and Andrew. All Don at best. Kathy and Donna were in the upper 70s. Holly was upper 70s. So those are your scores. Now, you can go on our website, unitedformissouri.org. You can look up scorecard. I think it's still in our deal. You can just search scorecard 2015 scorecard, and you can look to see exactly how each of them voted on these bills. And you can see how they matched up with our votes. But we thought, for example, the biggest thing on most of these would have been Holly's prescription drug monitoring program, where they would put all of our pain medicines into one centralized database down the state, which the guy who runs that said he's never been hacked and he will never be hacked. So it's safe. We're safe. So I don't know why we don't sell that technology to the White House and federal government, because they seem to have problems. So Hillary could use it. That's right. And so that probably most of those voted for that. I'm not sure all of them, but you can look online and find exactly what it is.
Well, all of these final bill votes are not amendments or something else.
Yeah, so these are final bill votes, and again, if you go to the website, you will tell whether some of these actually are override votes, because it doesn't matter if they're actual bills. For example, Senate Bill 24, which says modifies welfare benefits, that was actually revamping our TANF program, our welfare to work program. We were rated number 50 in the country because we had such a dismal, ineffective program. They actually did some good work on that. they overrode the governor's veto of that bill, and so that last vote is reflected there, because it's always the final vote that we monitor. Now, there are a couple of amendments, for example, Medicaid expansion didn't pass either house, but there were attempts by amendment to do that. That's why you see an amendment there, an amendment in the Senate. Otherwise, they're completed bills. They've passed either one or both of the houses. If you go online again, you will see an O for override, or you go for veto, or those sorts of things. Online at UnitedFoodServe.org, 2015 scorecard. So, and you know, this is what we rate them. So what we try to tell people is, if you go talk to Kathy and say, okay, what's the deal? Why'd you vote for this bill or against that bill, or you know, whatever? And she tells you, and you say, okay, well that makes sense. I mean, that's what we're trying to do is for them to explain it. Because when I was leaving the legislature, one of the things that really deterred me was legislators who didn't want to have to go back home and explain their vote, so they just rather not vote on something. I mean, that's just ridiculous. You can't stand the heat, get out of the kitchen. What are you here for? I told them we could get Democrats to do that. You know, why you're here. And so this is not intended to say that they're bad people in any way, but they have a record. We thought they ought to vote one way, and they voted a different way, and that's how they scored. So I'd encourage you to go and look at more details and then talk to them. Okay, in the Senate, their distribution, a lot of Bs primarily, and a lot of Fs. There's only 34 members in the Senate. So of your two area senators, Senator Romine got a 60, and Senator Wallingford got a 75. Now, I do know Senator Romine is a big hit because we do weight our votes. Not every bill, not every vote is equal. The vote on right to work was one of the highest rated votes that we had on weighted votes. We are going to wait tomorrow's. We will reissue the scorecard based on tomorrow's vote. So some people may be happy, some people won't. And so I know Senator Romine is very opposed to right to work, will not vote for it. His district will support him even if he did. He's up for re-election next year. But he's not going to. Senator Wallingford voted for it. His grade was based on, I think, about 3 different votes. Again, you can go online and look at those. They were votes that we thought were significant. But again, that doesn't make it bad. He can tell you why. And in one vote, for example, in the Senate, I think in the House, was a reauthorization or taking the sunset off of a sales tax, transportation sales tax in Kansas City. Right? You know, that's not necessarily the bad part of it. The bad part of it was the people voted to implement the sales tax with the sunset on it. So if you want to take the sunset off, go for it, but let the people vote on it again, see if they want to reauthorize it. That's not what happened. And what most of these folks, you know, everything else that's going on, whether it was right to work with, almost all of our good conservative people totally missed it until we pointed it out to them, unfortunately. After they voted, they said, oh yeah, we should have done it. So, which we really, we're probably going to change this. We don't normally tell people how we're going to rate a vote or do a vote because we want to see what they really made of it. It's very easy for me to let you know, here's the, we're going to have a test today, here are the answers we don't know. We may change that a little bit, because just like that, I think most of those folks got caught up in everything that was going on, and that particular bill wasn't that big of a deal in the total scheme of things for them, and they just totally overlooked it. So we're probably going to look at revamping that a little bit, and not necessarily giving them all the answers, but at least letting them know that that's subject to being rated. So again, take those, go online, UnitedFoodServe.org, look up, see what votes they missed, and if you're so inclined, talk to your senator or your reps about it. So why do we do it? Same grandkids, but I want to point out, so the first picture, they were at home in our living room sitting in my easy chair, right? So we were trying to make a better Missouri for them to live and to grow up in. This picture is at their new home in Florida. So we didn't make it for them. Now it's true. And so, it's too late for them because they're not coming back. their mom, dad has already told us, they're not coming. Right? But it's not too late to still make it for your kids and your family. And that's why we do, that's why we spend the time traveling the state. Our 77,000 members, trying to reach as many people with the message of what we can do to make our state better. And unless we, as constituents and as voters, get involved, it's not going to get better. I mean, we elect some good people. They need a lot of help. They need a lot of backup. And that's what we try to get people to do. So, if you're inclined and you're not already a member, we ask you to join us. I always tell people, if you join tonight, it's free, but it's free all the time. I thought if I made you a good deal, make you and actually, if you fill out the stadium card, we'll put you on a list. We do not send you emails every day, every week. We only send you emails when it's absolutely important. We sent out an email this week on right to work. We sent an email out probably 3 or 4 weeks ago on an update to right to work. So we only do it when you're needed and when you can be effective. And that's what we want you to be, is effective, because we don't want you to be, somebody that they say, oh, that's really good. We want you to be effective in what you do. You'll get regular updates. We do a blog, but you can also, most of our updates are on Facebook. We're on Facebook at United for Missouri. Is our Facebook page. And then any special events that we would have in an area, you can get notice of those as members. So the only way we're going to change what's happening, or to continue changing what's happening, is to stay involved. And I know you all, that's why you're here. That's what you do. That's what you're about. That's what's driving you now. And we really appreciate that. But we cannot weary and well do it. We have to keep it going. We have to make sure that as somebody we work with get tired, we will lift them up, or we step up in their place until they get rested again. We have to be filling the gaps. Because if we don't, we all know. So I thank you for all that you do. I thank you for having us here tonight, and I'd be glad to answer any questions that you have. Yes, sir.
Galloway nuclear plant will be replaced.
Callaway will not likely be replaced. Ameren had proposed to build what's with some modular nuclear with some new technology, and I believe they have abandoned that. It also at one time had proposed to build a second unit there at Callaway, and then pretty much abandoned it. Right now, the environment for any sort of energy, utility energy, unless it's green, is being extremely discouraged. Any other questions? Gary, you're supposed to have a bunch of arguments. You were supposed to have a bunch of arguments.
You say you have 77,000 members. You're a national group?
No, that's all in Missouri.
You have that many in Missouri?
Now, I do say, because I don't know how they do it, we have probably a handful, or maybe 10 people all across the country. I mean, they find us and they say, we're going to join. But yeah, 77,000, we actually, it's almost 77,500 almost, and all those are Missouri. I believe that we're the largest grassroots organization in the state.
Are you partnered with any other organizations working for a common goal or?
Yeah, so we strive together, for instance, on Right to Work. We work with AFP, we work with Brian Johnson Group, Alliance for Freedom. Mary Hill, actually, in Northwest Missouri, has been a big driver on Right to Work. So we try to work together. Matter of fact, that's why we concentrate, for example, on fiscal issues and limited government, because there are so many good groups out there that rather than us, all of us trying to do everything, we try to concentrate on where we can help the other groups and what they do best. That's what we try. Other questions? Yes, sir.
Have you been promoting right to work as more people in right to work states are self-employed and compulsory union states? So you don't have to deal with business.
So the question is, are we promoting right to work where we have more self-employed people because of compulsory union dues, of course, union states. And no, we haven't really from that perspective. But what we have been pushing is because of data, Bureau of Labor Statistics, if you look at them and here's where the problem comes in from the other side. I think, I'm not anti-union. If you want to belong to a union and you think that's the best thing for you, go join. I am anti-requirement that I have to join a union in order to have a job at a place where I'm qualified to work and somebody wants to hire me. right? So, but what we do see are those job opportunities, and that's what we track as job opportunities. And those could very well be self-employment and new jobs, but we just don't sell them in that fashion. That's a good thought.
You know, if you're a rep or a manufacturer's rep and, you know, like the works thing, you gotta have a contract. But, in a compulsory union, it's hard to get a contract because they have to deal with
The
that.
unions, yeah, unions, you know, and the union people don't read any more than their talking points. I mean, they are indoctrinated, and they don't dig a lot, so they believe everything that they're told, I mean, essentially. And I think they're good intentions, but they just, you know, Ronald Reagan said, the problem with their liberal friends is not their ignorance, it's just so much that they know is not true. And that's our union friends. And so, they have no clue, for example, what forced union means. They say, you know, well, first off, they say you don't have to join a union because you can go work somewhere else. Well, that's kind of encapsulates the problem. But secondly is, if you go to a place where your skill is covered by a union and you do get hired there, you have two choices. Join the union or pay your fair share of dues, which is essentially the same with some modification to the union. Because the unions, because they they choose to be the exclusive bargaining agent for everyone who works there. That is why they have to represent everybody, because they've chosen to do that. There is no union forced to do that. They can choose to represent members only. And if you choose not to join that union, you're on your own to negotiate your own terms. No problem with that. Right? But because they know if they did that, if they didn't choose to be exclusive representative, what happens when layoff occurs? Because how do layoffs usually happen in unions? Seniority rules, right? And just because you've been there a while doesn't mean you're the best worker, does it? Might be, or it might not be. But regardless, you're staying because senior. And so they know if they didn't represent everybody and require this, that, you know, next time the layoff rounds came around, the young guy said, let me see, it's not working. They would start losing union representation. And I kind of, you know, I'm not opposed to gigging. You know, fish are good too, frogs are good. People on the union deal is, I said, well, if unions do exactly all this great job that you say they do, and representation, quality, and everything else, why are you afraid to have right to work? Why are you afraid to have somebody compete with you since you're so good? Yes.
Third one coming out is, when you see the amount of money being donated to the hospital for government from the unions, has anyone ever done analysis to say out of the 100% of donations, X percentage?
Yeah.
Because that's one of the major things Democrats.
Koster has been getting a lot of unions. I don't know if the final total has been put together. You know, after Nixon vetoed House Bill 116, he got $50,000 from UAW, and he's not even running for anything. So we do know it's coming in. We see Koster does get it. In fact, I saw some contributions today that he got from unions. We also know, and here, this is what a lot of the Republicans who you know, just dug in are not getting. Next year, if they do not override this veto tomorrow, next year the unions will pour millions of dollars into Chris Koster's campaign to make sure he's elected governor. And what happens when they pour millions of dollars in Koster's campaign? It affects everybody. Every statewide race and even reps and senators will be affected. And they just don't understand that. I mean, it's pretty common sense on it. Yeah, and so it's really, you know, sacrificing, you know, everybody else for what you want. So, you know, you know, stop working against the majority of Congress. So I've told them that this is, for almost all of them that are in office today, this will be the biggest bill they make in their career.
I have to add, since I was at a Missouri press meeting over the weekend, one of the gentlemen who was working for this bill said that all of the representatives basically believe what you just reported. The right to work is good for the state. But some of them in those areas where the unions have intimidated them, that they're going to come after them. And so that's what's going on. There's a lot of lobbying going on the last 2 or 3 days, I think.
Right, and Gary and I talked about earlier too, is we had a guy actually in St. Charles. He was a school teacher. He was a member of the NEA. they let him go when he won the office because he won the office, and he happened to be a Republican. And so the union didn't do him any good representing there. Last year when Right to Work came up, this guy voted no on Right to Work because he was getting all this pressure. All these union people were coming in and just haranguing him and harassing him. And so he votes no. Blair Salin, last year's election, right? The union recruited his Republican primary opponent, and they recruited his Democrat opponent. And he said, I voted with you. He said, well, yeah, well, that's good. We appreciate that, but that's not good enough. We're always going to do it. And so Trumka, who's the head of the AFL-CIO, has been quoted as saying he did not get into labor leadership to improve the plight of labor. He got in it to elect more Democrats. And that's what we see from most of our unions. And so tomorrow is an exceptionally big vote. We're going to see the people who stand, for moving Missouri forward, and the people who don't. That will be clear. Again, thank you for all you do. Thank you again for having us. We appreciate your hospitality. Thank you. Oh, and because we are a fiscally conservative organization, you don't have to mail this. You can send this to us. Give it to her.
And even though, she asked about, does it work with other organizations?